And we're back for another episode of the Nic Cage Fight podcast, where we use an audio format because we don't want the world to see us, because we don't think that they'd understand. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by my fellow soldiers in arms to review Nic Cage movies, Rich and Ryan. How are we doing, guys? I'm not doing super great after this movie.
I've been touched by an angel and I am filing charges.
I don't have anything to add to this right
Fair.
now. It took me like 9 hours to watch this 1 hour 54-minute movie.
Yes, the movie in question, of course, being City of Angels, a 1998 PG-13 unforgivable hour and 54-minute length film starring, of course, Nic Cage. I did not enjoy myself. Let's jump directly into housekeeping and try and figure out how we got here.
Yeah,
So-
I'm interested.
Yeah. So first up, we've got the director, which is Brad Silberling of some movies that I've enjoyed. He's the one who directed Casper in 95, the Series of Unfortunate Events film, which I found perfectly fine. I've never read the books. I watched that and the series, I guess, that they did on Netflix. Entirely passable, but not necessarily directly up my alley. And then a number of appearances directing TV shows, including Jane the Virgin, Doogie Howser, MD, and NYPD Blue, which kind of explains the Dennis Franz casting.
Yeah. He did another movie that I kind of like called 10 Items or Less.
Oh, yeah.
And then he also did the Will Ferrell version of Land of the Lost, which was not great.
Yeah. Well, that's what we got as far as a director is concerned. For writers, the original story was apparently adapted by Dana Stevens, who has written most recently for The Woman King, which I have not seen yet, Fatherhood, Life or Something Like It, and Safe Haven, which I do feel the need to point out was a Nicholas Sparks novel adaptation into a film. Not the one everybody knows, but another one.
Are we just going to gloss over that she was an uncredited writer for The World Is Not Enough?
I missed that, actually.
Oh, yeah.
We mentioned it last episode when we were going down the list, but yeah,
Yeah, because, yeah.
that's an okay Bond film. Wouldn't put it in the top 20, but it's
No,
watchable.
definitely not. But yeah.
I'm a Connery Bond guy in general. I don't really acknowledge the other ones, but that's how I was raised. Don't hold it against me.
I like Timothy Dalton. His movies are way too
Nobody
self-serious.
likes Timothy Dalton.
He's not my favorite, but I appreciate his movies because they're so self-serious. And Felix ends up getting eaten by a shark in those.
I do want to take a moment to specify that Stevens adapted this from the screenplay, which I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of.
I got it.
Der Himmel über
Berlin.
Oh, did I do all right?
You got it.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Which was written by three writers, Wim Wenders, Peter Hadke, and Richard Reitinger. I think I did all right on those.
Yeah, if Ryan's not correcting you, you did correct.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
Wim Wenders.
I
But, yeah.
was gonna do that, but I wasn't sure if that was correct or mocking.
That is
couldn't tell.
correct, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good to know.
And the American title of that film being Wings of Desire.
Which I've been told was a good film. I will have to check it out at some point. Anything to rinse this depiction of angels just out of my psyche.
I
mean,
watched
we
it
have
immediately. Yeah, we do
I
have
know.
it. I watched it immediately after City of Angels, and it was a balm to soothe my sorry soul.
Yeah, I think I switched directly to Ron Perlman's Hellboy. I figured cancel it out with a complete opposite. And that
Smart.
was nice.
Smart.
So on to the cast, and I realize I have a very short cast list for this because my contempt for this film started during the research phase, apparently. But we start as always with Nic Cage, who plays Seth. Just Seth.
And just so everybody knows too, this was absolute fucking movie star Nic Cage. This is not, washed up Nic Cage or just starting Nic Cage. This is the first film he did after the Holy Trilogy.
Yeah, so height of power. some
Yeah,
would say.
this is like I just remember because in 1998 I was 11, and I remember the marketing of this film being fucking everywhere. That it was like the combined powers of Nic Cage and Meg Ryan were going to make a super film that was going to end the world or something.
Yeah, I can't stress enough, again, also having been alive and cognizant in 98, the power of Meg Ryan and Nic Cage in the late 90s was peak Hollywood.
And also the power of the Goo Goo Dolls too. Like there were a lot of
Yeah.
powerful things in this film.
Goo Goo Dolls, Sarah McLachlan, Alanis.
Yeah, there's a lot of forces that work here.
There were a lot of heavy hitters who just couldn't put it together.
So next up, we have Meg Ryan as Dr. Maggie Rice, who has been in a number of things. I mean, When Harry Met Sally, you've got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, Joe versus the Volcano, other movies that Ryan's going to tell us about, I'm sure.
Amityville 3D, baby.
Anastasia.
Yeah.
Now, the only one on that list I actually like is Joe versus the Volcano. That movie's great.
That's on a lot of lists. It's hard to argue.
I mean,
with the quality of that film.
I mean, it's Shandling, the guy that did Moonstruck. How could it not be good?
Correct.
Yeah. And look, like nobody's going to sit here and say that like she's not a bad actress, but I think we all have the same thought process of, she stopped acting in like 2001 when I was 14. Josh, you're my age. Ryan, you're what, like a year younger? So
something like that.
I
exist
think,
outside of time like an angel.
Fair. I don't think that we kind of get her. Like, I understand that she's a good actress. I understand that. And I understand that she's been in some good movies. But I don't understand Meg Ryan as the social, like, goddess that she was from, like, 87 to 99.
I think that she is explicitly a product of the 90s and 90s media hype, right? You run into a bunch of people who think they were born at the wrong time. Meg Ryan was born at exactly the right time to do Meg Ryan shit. That's my opinion. I think it's specifically a cultural touchstone that existed in one place at one time for like a decade and a half and then got shelved. Yeah. So that's what I'm chalking it up to, because again, watching this many years later, I don't get it. I support it, but I don't get it. Next up, we have Andre Braugher as Cassiel, who has been in a number of things, including Frequency, The Mist, probably most notably to a lot of people from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But I got to throw in Primal Fear as well, because I did enjoy that film.
Primal Fear is real good. He was also in a bunch of Kojak TV movies. Like
yeah,
Kojak.
I was about to say, like, he was in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
And didn't, like, I remember as far as like parents watching TV shit, he was in like the titular star of a doctor show, like one of those ER rivals, like Gideon's Crossing. Is that what it was called?
I'm not sure. Yes. I know the one I know him from is Homicide: Life on the Streets. He played one of the leads in that.
Yeah, that too.
But yes, it was Gideon's Crossing. And
yeah,
I don't think you said the actor's name. I think you said the name of the character twice.
No, I said Andre Braugher.
Oh,
Cassiel.
did you? Okay.
Yeah, I heard him say Andre Braugher.
My bad.
Okay.
I might just be
Cassiel as Cassiel, playing himself, an angel.
Yeah, it's a real Peter Falk situation.
Next up, we have Dennis Franz.
That joke will make sense later.
As Nathaniel Messenger, who is most recognizable, I would say, from NYPD Blue, but he was also in Die Hard 2. And I had to throw in, I haven't had time to go and check this, but apparently he has an uncredited voice line in Scarface.
Oh, well, this film also, the one good joke that it has is when she keeps mispronouncing his last name, and his wife says, like, it's a soft G, like messenger. And I thought that was an example. And then it just turned out that was his last name.
next up, I had to throw her on here because she is a relatively important character in the film, at least an important side character. But we've got Robin Bartlett again as Anne, who was
She's
in
back, baby.
Yeah, who we spoke about in Moonstruck, but has also been in Shutter Island and inside Llewyn Davis.
She was also in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing in the 90s too.
Yeah,
Scientists shrinking themselves and their family.
shrinking the kids, shrinking themselves, blowing up themselves, or blowing up the kid.
Yeah,
The first one out of that series is actually by Stuart Gordon, the guy that did Reanimator.
Oh.
there you go. Fair amount of body horror.
Yeah, no, it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is in fact body horror.
Of course it is. But yeah, kids these days, they have Ant-Man. We saw the original, which was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And the last one on my list, I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack, maybe, I don't know. But I've got Calm Fior as Jordan Ferris. He was in Chicago. I know him most from Chronicles of Riddick, personally. He was also in Thor, played King Lear in the 2015 King Lear, and he was also in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Who was he in The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
That's a good question. I haven't seen that movie more than once, so I can't really place him.
Donald Menken? Who the hell is, you know what? I don't know. I don't care.
And that
you missed one.
Who'd I miss?
For Colin. He was also in Face Off.
Oh shit.
He's the doctor that takes the faces off.
That is a critical part of that storyline. How did I miss that?
He's the one who makes the face off possible.
In my defense, my man has 165 acting credits.
That is fair.
So yeah, I might have missed that one. Interesting, but very solid. Good catch. Very good catch.
There's another one that I'm trying to remember. It's the air traffic controller. He plays April O'Neil's boss in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. That was the other one I wanted to shout out.
Oh, that's another solid one.
Jay Patterson, that's that guy's name.
There you go. Yeah, there it is. Face Off. I don't know how I missed it. All right. So that's going to wrap housekeeping. And we can jump into the plot because there's really nothing I want more than to put this movie behind us. So we open up on the bedroom of a young girl, and Nic Cage, Seth, is sitting by her bedside while her mother kind of frantically runs around, takes her temperature. It's not a good number. I don't know what number is the dead number for your temperature, but it's real close to that.
It was comically high. It was like 106 or something. It was like, why aren't you dead yet high?
I think it was like 104. I think your brain starts to boil at like 105 or something like that. But it was
I'm going to check because I remember hearing the number and being like, that shouldn't be a thing. I'm literally playing this movie right now because
it's 105
so bad.
They say 105 in the movie. 103 is when it's dangerous.
Gotcha. I thought 105 is when you're done. I will say this. I watched this one with my professional nurse fiance, who took a lot of umbrage with the medical shit in this movie. And we're not going to cover any of that because I don't know what doctors do. Magic, I assume.
That's fair. I did just find a weird piece of housekeeping that I have to mention. This is the same cinematographer as Mad Max Fury Road. How is this so boring looking when he made Mad Max Fury Road like 20 years later?
He grew and evolved.
Was it the cinematographer or the director who did not just Mad Max Fury Road, but like Babe the Pig and like Happy Feet 1 and 2?
I think you're thinking of George Miller, the director, not the actual cinematographer.
Gotcha. Just wanted to check that. So anyway, things aren't looking great for the kid. And the next scene is the kid on a gurney in a hospital. Cage following along, walking beside the doctors, unseen by any of the adults, but the sick girl seems to see him. The girl clearly codes on the table and then appears sort of out of body standing next to Seth and outside the room, sort of looking in. and he explains his name and that she's got to go with him now. And it looks like what I took from this immediately, which was actually incorrect, is that he's some sort of angel of death, sort of easing people's passing to the other side. But apparently angels are sort of like a catch-all. They got a lot of jobs. Some of them don't really make sense. But this is one of them. So, he definitely helps this little girl who dies in the hospital to pass on to the other side. So at this point, the screen fades to white and we get the title card flash, City of Angels. You know what we're here to talk about. And Seth is outside the hospital on a bench talking to another angel. This is Cassiel. And they're talking about their observations of people. And Seth asks Cassiel if he ever wonders what it would be like to be touched, sort of setting up the sense that angels don't quite have all of the senses that humans have. This is the part where I started having issues with the rules. That's one of the main things I tend to harp on in stories. So they can see to an extent, they can hear people think, but they've got no sense of smell, taste, or touch. Those are the senses we left out of the creation of angels.
And I believe they say at one point that angels have no senses, which makes no sense, but because they can clearly hear each other, and unless they're speaking telepathically, you know what? I don't care. Don't care. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I agree. So the camera at this point pans over the city, and we see a bunch of similarly dressed people on like rooftops or walking amongst people on the street. Turns out the angel uniform in particular is just black trench coats that sort of billow in the breeze all the time.
And like a big scarf, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, usually
he's wearing like a scarf.
And this is also the point where we get a couple of scenes indicating that the angels aren't just ferrying people to the other side, but they also observe and do this. I called it nudging in my notes, but it's like something's happening. So an angel like puts a hand on their shoulder, and then things go different, better, less, worse. I'm not sure. The magic at play here is not clearly defined.
But with no sense of touch, how do they know what kind of pressure they're applying? Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never explained. Doesn't need to be, because this movie sucks shit.
There you go.
I keep having questions, and then being, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah. We've run into this before, guys. We're getting seasoned at this. And so when you notice that the movie isn't really paying attention to the rules that they've told you, the viewer, you got to just sort of roll with it to get through it.
Real quick, though, I do want to say we're going to shit on this movie a lot, but all of the actors are trying their hardest. Nobody is bad in this movie. And I want to make that perfectly clear. It's like they're just working with what they got.
Yeah, I think the major problem lies in the screenplay and a lot of the approach that they take in the filmmaking techniques compared to the original film Wings of Desire, which is, as I witnessed last night, an absolute fucking masterpiece, which this is not.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to... I just want to kind of make it clear, because a lot of the times when people like rag on a movie, it's always because of the acting. That is not the problem here.
Yeah, everyone is pretty damn good. Like Nic Cage is putting a hell of a performance in. Andre Braugher is pretty good, kind of creepy. Dennis Franz is the shining highlight of the whole thing.
Yeah, he tries to carry this entire film on his broad shoulders, but it can't quite make it across the finish line.
Yeah, like Meg Ryan plays a, very upset doctor, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, she does fine.
Yeah.
But we do also get the first in a recurring series of these scenes where the angels apparently gather on the beach in this city, and they do this. I think when we're seeing it, it's sunset, it might be sunrise, regardless, it's clarified later they do it at both, but they sort of just show up and stand on the beach. And the thing that cracked me up a bit is there's like those little the lifeguard towers, and like a couple angels are just standing on top of each one of those as well. Absolutely bizarre. I don't get it. And also there's a weird sound cue that they use with this too, which is I'm assuming supposed to sound like a choir of angels, but none of them seem to be making the noise themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like how are they perceiving beauty? Like, why are they watching a sunrise? It's don't care, move on.
Correct. So now we get a woman riding on a bicycle, sort of weaving around traffic and arriving at the hospital. This is Meg Ryan, our Dr. Maggie Rice. She gets ready for her shift, hanging up what I originally took to be a rosary because I was waiting for the religious iconography, but it's a necklace of some sort that I can only describe as looking like a rosary that's missing the crucifix on the end. Weird fashion choice, or maybe it's supposed to mean something. I'm not entirely sure.
I think you're reading
Maybe
too much into that.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe like it's supposed to be like a doctor's like separation from God or something. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but either way, like the necklace is prominently featured throughout the entirety of the film, and it just looks like a rosary with the dangling cross snipped off to me. But again, I might be reading too much into an overtly religious movie. I don't know. Maybe it's my fault.
Probably.
But yeah, she's about to go into surgery. She's a cardiac surgeon of some sort, a heart doctor, heart surgery doctor. And the first scene kind of cracked me up a little bit because she like scrubs in and they're like, the patient wanted to talk to you, and she goes in and he's already getting anesthesia. So he's just like blearily looks at her and then conks out again immediately. So she performs the surgery. It looks like it went great, but Seth is in the room when she leaves, so shit's about to go sideways. And of course, the patient flatlines right after. Maggie runs back in, literally like doing palpitations of the heart with the guy's chest cracked open. But we see the patient out of body standing next to Seth, so it's relatively clear he doesn't make it. I do want to toss this out there just because it was one thing that apparently is not out of the question in the medical profession, where they're stitching the guy back up and they're doing an inventory of the items that they used while they did the surgery. And somebody's like, uh-oh. And they're like, what are we missing? And they're like, a sponge. And so like everybody like ducks under the table and looks around, but eventually somebody finds it. So yeah, sometimes they sew that shit up in you. Sometimes they forget it.
Always a treat to find out that you have a sponge inside of you, because that shit will kill you in about like 4 hours, I think.
I feel like I've got tons of sponges inside me. Sometimes you eat a sponge. It happens.
Inside you, there are 2 sponges.
So Maggie has to go and tell the family that the patient didn't make it. This is a relatively interesting scene for a couple reasons to me. First of all, the way the family acts, it seems like this was a routine, like as routine as heart surgery can get. Like they're putting in a stent or something like that. But the family is like, yo, what's up? When can we go see him? And she's like, he's fucking dead, like super dead. And the daughter, even for the 90s, has an awful haircut. It's just unjustifiable.
Well, she looks like, the only way that I can describe her is have you ever seen the movie Superstar, like the Molly Shannon fucking movie?
Yes,
the
I
devil worshiper girl? She looks like her.
Yeah, fair
Like
point.
same aesthetic.
But yeah, it doesn't go well giving this information to the family that a loved one didn't make it. Maggie's pretty torn up about the guy dying, and she goes into a stairwell and cries on the steps.
A sign you should not be a doctor.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not clear how long she's been a doctor, but this one apparently got to her. Now, I did put in my notes, if angels are supposed to have blank ass stares, Cage has got this shit down pat, because he is like nose to nose, just dead eyeing her while she's crying.
Well, I think that they're supposed to be kind of like a blank faced, like a blank canvas kind of thing. And if so, Nic Cage and Andre, whatever his last name is, Brower, thank you. Andre Brower both do a very good job of kind of having like this kind of creepy half smile going on the whole time, and just kind of do a very good job of kind of killing all emotion in their face.
Cage does it way better than Brower. We don't see
Oh,
Brower
yes.
too often in this film. Like we don't see him at all in a scene like this where he's like looking at a person like they're at a zoo. But Cage brings that kind of weird blank-faced wonder to it. It's unsettling, but it gets the message across pretty effectively. Actually, speaking of Brower, the very next thing we see is Seth and Cassiel having one of their conversations, and Seth asks Cassiel if he's ever, been seen by somebody who's not dying, and Cassiel points out, establishing another rule that nobody can see angels unless the angel wants them to. While they're having this conversation, they're sort of walking through a convenience store, and the store gets robbed as they're there. So they're very nonchalant, but they're there on business, I guess, because one of them puts a hand on the shoulder of the robber, one of them puts a hand on the shoulder of the cashier who's getting robbed. I think the implication is that this action prevented the robber from shooting the cashier, and the cashier being able to calmly hand over the money, and nobody dies.
Speaking of robberies, we should probably go to an ad break.
Oh, absolutely.
Because these ads will rob you of your money, but also let us rob you of your money by going to patreon.com/Nic Cage Fight and giving us money for content.
There you go.
It's robbery. It's robbery. That's what it is.
These deals are a steal, people. Get in there.
Okay, now put the money in the bag and everything is cool. Are we cool? All right, we're cool. We're back.
All right.
Hands in the air.
No, that part's over. We've already made the getaway. They've already subscribed to our Patreon.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of somebody in the getaway car who just like froze during the robbery and is now like, put everything in the bag. It's like, we're on our way out of here. But good energy. So either way, I'm not gonna lie. This scene, I was just like, what the fuck is the job of these angels here? They track down people who are dying and like hold their hands as they walk into the light, and then otherwise they just sort of wander around and stop people from committing worse crimes while they're committing crimes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not very well established. Like, none of the rule stuff really works.
What are the rules?
There are none.
My primary question,
the points don't matter.
Story, yes, Maggie's still clearly upset about the guy who died. This is not a mystery to the rest of the staff at the hospital. She actually learns that a procedure she had scheduled was postponed, the hospital telling the patient that she was sick when she was clearly there and working, but everybody knew she's kind of taken some psychic damage from what happened before.
Also, so, I have a mathematical question about these fucking angels too. I just because I was looking at it. Do you know how many people die in the world per second?
Lots.
1.8 deaths in the world per second. So about 2 deaths a second. And it's established that an angel will stay with the person for like at least like 30, 45 seconds. So they can't do multiples, right?
Oh, it's more than 30, 45 seconds. Seth was at that kid's fucking bedside. We got an ambulance ride. We got walking down the hall and her coding on a table. That's at least that's 5 to 15 minutes of work. Easy.
So like I'm doing the math. So there's 120 deaths per minute, which would mean there's 7,200 deaths per hour.
You're running into some staffing issues.
Yeah, there's a lot. How many angels does this motherfucker have?
Maybe.
I mean, he almost lost a war with Satan. I'm sure some angels ate it there. Is he making new angels? Because it doesn't seem so. It seems like they've all just been around for all eternity.
Yeah, I don't know if you make new ones. And also later in the film, we're going to learn that you can just quit at some point. So.
Yeah, you could just you can put in your papers, get a severance package. It's not very good, unfortunately. It seems like the long reach of capitalism has reached into heaven as well. And, God said, well, there's only one job here, motherfucker. You don't get a severance package.
Wait, maybe they're just phoning it in for people who die of old age surrounded by their loved ones. Maybe the angel's like, I don't know. I feel like the mortals got this one in hand. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I don't. There's
All
staffing
right,
issues.
so I did find a Bible fucking segment that does mention how many angels there are. There are thousands of angels. So I could see it working logistically.
There's billions and billions of humans.
Well, no, okay, so thousands upon thousands can be anywhere from essentially 2,000 to 999,999.
No, 2,000 doesn't make sense because it's 1,000,000. That's like a minimum million.
Okay.
Okay. I was going more off since the Bible's a literary text, not a mathematical text.
Exactly.
Like I'm going off of the
Whoa,
literature,
whoa.
but you're going off the mathematics, which is
Not
fine.
a mathematical text. What about 70 times 7? That is flat numbers, baby.
That is flat numbers.
Listen,
Two of every animal. Those are numbers.
Josh, you're as subtle as a brick in the small of my back.
There you go. That's the reference we were looking for, folks.
So never forget, Jesse Lacey is still hanging outside of Levittown High School, just picking up 16-year-olds.
Yeah. Another element of the 90s. Lost innocence. We'll never get back. The doctor.
For legal reasons, I cannot prove that.
Yeah. Please don't.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
We don't have a
Please-
legal department yet.
Please, brand new, don't sue me. I've I've downloaded your albums numerous times. Sometimes they were legal.
Not so much recently.
No, not so much recently.
The idea that he loves our podcast and gets to this episode and is like, what the fuck? Honey, call the lawyer. Anyway, so the doctor that tells Maggie that her surgery's been canceled for the day because everybody's telling her she's sick, or they're telling everybody she's sick. It looks like they have a bit of a thing. This becomes more concretely established as we go on. But this is Colm Fior, Jordan, whose name I don't write down because I think they use his name maybe 3 times in the entirety of the film. So this is where I got sort of slightly enamored by one of the rules where the angels can like read thoughts, because we get a scene in a library where Seth's just sort of wandering around and there are people walking around thinking, or people doing the inner monologue where they read all the lines in their head, which is relatively interesting. He pauses at an old guy who's reading a Hemingway novel. I have it written down later in my notes. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's relatively intriguing as a scene. But the angels seem to congregate at a library because I don't know what else are you gonna do between sunrise and sunset.
So I kept seeing like a lot of old people there, so I thought there was about to be a lot of death happening at the public library.
Yeah,
that would have made for a scene.
Maybe that's where they go to look for the old people who are gonna die. I was like, gotta keep an eye on this one.
Because like you notice that, right? That like the camera focuses on like 8 people in their 80s and 90s and just angels walking around. I'm just like, are these people about to just kick it in the library?
Yeah. And the way the movie has established everything up till now, I think you're entirely justified in that immediate thought. But however, the very next scene we get introduced to, in my opinion, the strongest character as far as the writing is concerned, Nathaniel Messenger. This is Dennis Franz, and he does a great job. But he is just housing a pint of Ben and Jerry's. He just like me, for real. But he is waiting to get heart surgery, so it's a little bit different. And Maggie comes in, and Nathaniel gives her some shit for delaying the surgery. And there's a fun little back and forth. He gets caught having eaten the Ben and Jerry's. His wife and the doctor seem kind of annoyed by this, but who brought it to him? Who snuck it in for him?
Who brought it to him, and what's he in for? Like, if he's not in for like gastric bypass or like a massive coronary, like why is this a problem?
Oh, it's a stent. I guarantee you it's a heart stent.
Oh, but also you're not supposed to eat like 12 hours before surgery, and maybe he's going into surgery now. Like, okay.
You could be getting a blood panel. You're not supposed to eat before that.
He's definitely getting heart surgery. That's the whole thing that got delayed. But the next scene did kind of crack me up a little bit because, again, Maggie's still feeling it pretty hard from this guy dying on the table. So she visits the children's ward. I wouldn't go and look at a bunch of like terminally ill, adolescents to cheer myself up. But she does pass quickly through here to go to the hospital nursery. So it's all newborn babies and stuff.
I mean, I would do that to cheer myself up, though. Like, you're all going to die and you're like 6. Look at me. I'm 35 and still alive, baby.
It's extra depressing for the viewer because there's a shit ton of angels in with the sick kids. They're like making balloons float and stuff, or watching. The one part that did make me laugh is there's two kids in the beds and the TV's on, and they're watching cartoons, and there's a grown-ass man dressed as an angel just like staring intently at the like heavily invested in the kids cartoon. That was pretty good. I'll give him credit for that. Later on in the evening, Maggie is walking to the elevators and actually sees Seth, and they have a brief conversation. This is something I wanted to pull up and talk about because I've seen it in more modern movies that I enjoy, and nobody really analyzes this because you have an attractive actor, which Nic Cage is, but sometimes movies lose the plot with the conversations that these guys have, and when critically analyzed, they're so bizarre and creepy. If it ever happened in real life, it's just absurd. So I got real Drive vibes from this scene because Cage, when he interacts with Seth, when he interacts with Maggie before she figures out what's going on, is all absurdity. The angelic naivety, which they don't stick to in any sort of cohesive fashion. The stuff he says, it's a bizarre conversation when looked at with any sort of critical eye, but when completely uncritical, it's kind of like weirdly flirtatious. He mentions her.
Yeah, he reads a passage from the horniest Hemingway novel, Movable Feast, his memoir about living in Paris.
That's the book that the older dude was reading.
Yeah, and it's like there's a lot of horny food stuff in that book, and he like the whole section about eating oysters is vaguely veiled about him having like a sexual experience.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of horny food stuff in this movie too. So it's they clearly picked the right literary allegory, I guess, to try and cement it. But at some point in the conversation, he calls her by her first name, and she doesn't catch it immediately. But when she does, he says, he points, she's wearing a name tag, a badge for the hospital. She goes to walk away, and Seth pulls a Batman where she's walked a couple of steps, turns to look back at him, and he's just gone. Shortly thereafter, she looks at her own name tag and realizes that there's just a first initial on there and her last name. So she does catch on onto the fact that he knew her name with no real way to know it. It's the start of it's mystery. He's a mysterious guy. It's not weird. Don't make it weird. So shortly after this, in the very next scene, Maggie is performing surgery on Mr. Messenger, and she sings the Band-Aid jingle in her head while she works, despite the fact that they play music in the surgery room like very demonstrably earlier in the film. But Seth is clearly standing there, so we're getting the inner monologue that she has. And she clearly has a thing for Seth. Seth made an impression because she talks about how Mr. Messenger can't die, at least until he gives her Seth's number. After this, she goes home. Seth just sort of stalks her. Angel stalks her, so it's fine. But she goes home. She takes a bath. Seth is definitely there, still listening to her thoughts and standing like super close as she's toweling herself off and such. Also has the most over the top, on the nose, horny song playing at the time. which is for all of the musical elements of this movie that are really on the nose to the point that like they paid for the song to be in the film. This one I was like, what the fuck is going on? Do you guys remember this scene?
I don't remember the song.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to paint me a picture. Paint me a word picture.
I don't know the song off the top of my head, but the chorus that crescendos as she's thinking about Seth toweling herself off after a bath, and Nic Cage is like, his nose is like a centimeter from her cheek. The chorus is something like, "You make me feel like the Amazon is coursing between my legs," something like that. Super horny lyrics. So
this movie is very horny.
There you go, PG-13. And anyway, in the night, it
the
gets
song is "Feel in Love" by Paula Cole.
There you go. Look at the lyrics. Look at the fucking chorus.
Yeah, no, you got it pretty fucking close.
There you go. So anyway, Maggie has trouble sleeping. This is something that we come back to a couple of times in the film. And throughout the course of the night, she wakes and finds the Hemingway book, Movable Feast, on her nightstand, checked out of the library. And in the very next scene, she tries to return it to her sort of boyfriend, Jordan Ferris, who she finds him playing basketball on the roof of the hospital. And she asks him how his day was, and he's like, "Oh, one of my patients died." And she's like, "Oh shit, are you all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." The weird doctors, this happens.
The attitude that I would want my doctor to have, by the way. Like, I don't need somebody sobbing over somebody who died like 4 hours ago. Nah, give me that steady hand motherfucker who just sees me as a machine.
Look, when I'm dead, throw me in the trash. But she tries to give him the book, and he's like, "Oh, that's not mine." Credit to him, he doesn't seem like suspicious or jealous or anything. He just kind of thinks she might be losing it, I guess. But she goes back to the library that it was checked out from. And of course, Seth is there. The library is the angel hangout spot. And
you know what? I jumped the gun. This is where he reads from Movable Feast.
Yes. I thought so, because I thought that was the setup for this part. But Seth spots her, reveals himself again, and talks to her. And again, we get this weird conversation, which is sort of chalked up on the viewer side to, that weird naivety that angels apparently have, and her sort of thinking he's just mysterious and super good at flirting. But he tells her explicitly that he's a messenger of God. He even has her close her eyes, and he runs a finger along her palm. Now, I know the imagery they're using here. I'm not sure the message that Seth is going for, but there's a lot going on here. He can't feel, the sensation of him touching her palm. She can. He's using this act to sort of reassure her that the work that she does is meaningful and has a purpose. She takes it mostly as deep flirting, I guess. And all of the while, every angel in the library, and there's a lot of them, are just like fucking standing at the railings and like looking at them. It's weird.
It is very weird. This is also one of the like major divergences from Wings of Desire. There is one character who can see the angel in Wings of Desire before he becomes human. He's just sort of there for all of the other incidental characters in that sort of creepy, stalkery way that angels are. So like, there's no point where if he wanted you to see him, you could see him in the original, until Peter Falk, who is the Dennis Franz's character, kind of fill in more or less, sees him, and you realize, oh, Columbo's an angel.
I sort of wish they did that again. Like, aren't you the guy from NYPD Blue? It's like, yeah, I'm also an angel.
That would have been so much better. That would have kicked this movie up like at least a solid star point for me.
I agree.
Are you the guy from Die 2, Die Harder?
I would have loved
to
that.
Die 2 Hardest?
Because Dennis Franz's character is far and away my favorite one. The only one that like in my opinion, fits with the rules and concepts, makes perfect sense to me. No notes, great job. Writing and acting for Franz specifically. Everywhere else is where it falls apart. So despite the weird dialogue that would probably be a red flag for anybody not being super horny for Nic Cage, so we can't hold it against Meg Ryan's character here.
No, this
Maggie,
would 100% work on me.
Yeah, I agree. But Maggie takes Seth with her shopping, and she's picking up produce, and she takes him back to the hospital, and he's still being weird because he's an angel and talking about it like he has no guile whatsoever. And Maggie's trying to sort of explain what got her into medicine, and she shows him her blood under a microscope after saying, like, hey, can I take some of your blood? And he's like, that would be physically impossible. Just weird shit.
Like, really sounds like something Andrew Tate would say. Like, can I have some of your blood? You got to come here and take it, bled. Motherfucker. Never bled in my life.
Never bled. I don't have it. I ain't got blood. I'm full of motor oil.
Never cried as a baby and never bled.
Never read a book either. So Maggie gets called up while they're in the lab looking at blood, and she tells Seth to stay put and heads up to Nathaniel Messenger's room. He's just woken up post-surgery. There's a weird, very non-medical scene was pointed out to me because it looked like Messenger was intubated post-surgery, but he's not. It's like a short little tube. It's not actually down his esophagus at all. But, he's woken up. He's breathing a little rough. Seth is in the room, invisible once again. And he does the angel nudge, and Messenger starts to breathe a little bit easier. But after Maggie leaves the room, Messenger calls out, I know you're there, but I can't, I might not be able to see you, but I know you're there. Seth is not in the lab when Maggie returns, so she goes home, and her boyfriend guy is there waiting for her. She seems at this point to be questioning the relationship, at least has some level of discontent with what's going on there. But it sort of ends with them laughing and kissing and kind of fooling around. Of course, Seth is there witnessing all of this. And then we cut back to Messenger at the hospital. He's channel surfing, and he turns to the empty chair in his room and asks if hey, do you want to watch anything? No answer. And he says, me neither, and turns off the TV. And finally, I guess this is the provoking factor. Seth appears to him and asks him how he knows he's there. Messenger seems like real aware of all of the angel shit. Gets Seth to take him to a diner where he's still in like the ass out gown and everything. It's kind of hilarious. And after ordering just a massive fucking spread, like just like waffles, pancakes, eggs, everything, just going to town, Messenger tells Seth that he used to be an angel. And this is where we get sort of a knowledge bomb dropped on Seth. Messenger explains that angels can choose to become humans, and Seth is fucking flabbergasted. This is all new to him, and he goes into some level of detail, but mostly it's just sort of vague pontificating. He says, God gave humans the greatest gift in the world, free will. You think he didn't give us that? At this point, we cut to Maggie, who is having trouble sleeping, and then we cut back to Seth and Messenger, and they're sitting on an unfinished high rise, like the fucking steel joiners and shit like that. No idea how they got up there. It's never addressed. And Messenger tells them that there's other angels turned human out there as well, and that they don't really talk to each other. They don't interact too much because they don't want to be reminded of what they were before. And he pulls out pictures of his family to explain why he chose to become human. He also asks Seth if the angels still do that beach thing together at sunrise. And he's like, yeah, we do it at sunrise and sunset. And he asks him to take him there. So they go, and messengers can't hear the angels or the weird chorus crooning or whatever the hell the noise is. But he gets butt ass naked and goes and takes a little swim.
And he wants to catch the big wave.
Yeah, which I'm not like, body surfing is fun. It's a primal childlike joy, and I don't care how old you are. That shit is fun as fuck. Do it. If you haven't done it in a while, when summer swings around, fucking do it. Have a good time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. I do want to make mention of this because at some point in the scenes between the diner and everything like that, when Messenger is explaining that he became human, the most realistic line explaining this process, at least as far as I'm concerned, is like, so, I became human, and then the hedonist you see before you, and he's a big guy, he's got a big family. My dude liked eating and fucking. That's the peak of human experience for him. And I am inclined to agree with him. So
food rules. Like there's no arguing that food is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's right. This is great.
Yeah, he is the only character, in my opinion, that is abiding by the rules that have been established for the film. So the very next scene, we get Seth talking to Cassiel about what he learned about becoming human, and Cassiel seems supportive, really, of the whole idea. Now, I think this is the scene where they're sitting on the weird cowboy billboard. That might be later. I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, like I said, Cassiel's gut instinct, he seems much less floored by the possibility of that than Seth was upon first learning it. And he's like, yeah, no, look, if you want to become human and run off with Maggie, go for it.
Yeah, like who am I to say no?
Yeah, I don't know. Cassiel seems like a good friend in general. Like, he plays that part pretty well throughout the entirety of the film, but doesn't really do too much as far as providing direction. So, I don't know. I like the Franz scenes a lot.
Your face was just like, I have to keep talking about this fucking movie, don't I?
Yeah, a little bit. No, we can keep going for a moment. I do want to cut us off before one of the bigger reveals, and then we can sort of go from there. So the next scene that we get is Seth finds Maggie in the park walking her dog.
It's a good dog too. I like movie dogs. It's a good movie dog.
Yeah, it's a good movie dog. It's funny. I feel like they kind of like played off of everybody's like, all right, the dog is very important to Maggie. The dog's in like 3 or 4 scenes, and that's about it. But she's at the park with her dog, and Seth shows up and talks to her, and Seth, having had this conversation with Cassiel, having had these revelations from Franz, is clearly thinking about some stuff, because he quickly turns the conversation to Maggie's boyfriend and asks if she loves him. Now, this is this is how you know somebody's into you. I don't know. Like, it's so weird to me the way the dialogue is written here, but she just sort of waffles on it. She's like, what's love? It's just a chemical reaction. She goes full nerd on him with it, which is not a good sign.
Not what you want to hear.
Yeah. It's what Seth might want to hear. Not looking too great for Jordan, though.
So I've got a great idea for the episode description. You should just title this one "Cucked by an Angel."
Yeah.
Done and done.
Yeah, no, that's kind of perfect. So after she waffles, after the what does love mean thing, she kind of calls Seth out on how he's fucking weird. And then they kiss, and she asks if he felt that, and he's like, no, not really. Like, it's clear on his face. He doesn't actively say it, but it's not the response you want.
Again, so many questions. He can't feel pressure.
Yeah.
I'm dying inside, actually. You know what?
You need an angel?
Yeah.
Just imagine, if you will, Andre Braugher invisibly placing his hand on your shoulder right now. Do you feel different? Do you feel better?
No.
No, you don't. So Seth has a moment where he sort of laments. He's like, I want to explain it, but you'll never understand. It's not like you have any sort of concept of organized religion on this world. But she is clearly insulted and feels snubbed and walks away. I think this is where I want to cut this one. They do also, by the way, briefly discuss that Messenger is having a party, welcoming him home from the hospital. And they're both sort of unsure if either that they're both going to be there. They've both been invited essentially, but then the kiss and the hurt feelings, and we needed to be a little bit dramatic, and this marks about the halfway point of the film. So let's us take a break and collect ourselves and figure out how we're going to spin some more gold out of this angel hair in the reveal, rundown, and final elements of the review of this. In the meantime, of course, give us a follow on social media. We're on Facebook, but just for weird uncles. If you're not a weird uncle, don't go on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at cagefight_pod. Go ahead, check us out on that. The algorithm's all fucked up. We might be showing up on your feed already.
I hope so. That would be kind of cool. Maybe Elon Musk listens to our podcast.
I don't think we say enough weird right-wing things to show up in people's feeds.
I mean, if I need to. We talked about Kanye West for like 25 minutes that one podcast. I even threw in the parentheses.
But in a derogatory fashion. I don't think that beats it. I don't know. Also, the algorithm would be able to tell you're being insincere. Have you seen these chat things and like the AI rising? They know you don't mean it.
Yeah, but like, what if I put like cucked by an angel, but then in cucked put like 3 parentheses, and then just randomly put in the word Brandon somewhere? Like, would that help maybe?
And super based, and the picture for the episode has to be Nic Cage with laser eyes. Then we got a
Dark Cage.
Dark Cage.
Dark Cage has finally come.
Yeah. What's our Patreon again?
I was about to make a Dark Cage joke, but I should probably just give the Patreon. Patreon.com/Nic Cage Fight. If you do not give us money, Dark Cage will unite with Dark Brandon though and find you. And I don't know. What do they say? He raise your taxes? I don't know what he's going to do.
Take away your stoves.
He's going to take away your stoves.
No,
that's
stoves.
The greatest thing in the world right now. Considering how like 70% of stoves in America are electric.
Yeah, in the primarily concentrated in places like the Bible Belt and shit. It is kind of hilarious.
Yo, imagine being so pilled that you're triggered by natural gas.
I guarantee anybody complaining about that doesn't actually fucking cook.
Yeah.
Anybody complaining about that doesn't fuck. Like,
yeah. I'll co-sign on that. If you ain't cooking, you ain't fucking.
I do just like that it's like this just absurd like suggestion, like maybe we shouldn't put gas stoves in new construction starting 5 years from. Everybody wants to make every dollar they can from natural gases while we have it. It's just like an absurd minimal talking point that dominated our news cycle for over a week. We're just a nation of goldfishes and clowns and clownfishes and clowns that aren't fishes. I'm not sure.
Just clowns mostly.
Yeah,
Patreon.com/Nic Cage Fight. Don't let Dark Cage get to you.
We won't take your stoves if you subscribe.
Yeah, we will. We can promise that the 3 of us, we can make this promise. We will not take your stoves. I may take your catalytic converter though. Maybe.
Yeah.
Good platinum on one of them's.
Only if you drive a Prius. And only if it's like an 08 to a 2011.
Yeah, and if we get 50 Patreon subscribers, maybe we'll do a stove giveaway.
But it has to be gas. It has to be a gas stove.
Yeah, it's just a gas stove. Just ship it to somebody. We'll do a lottery.
We'll do a lottery. Like, guess what? You get a gas stove. Which one is it? The cheapest one we could find.
Oh, 100%, man. We're going to go to the scratch and death, baby.
It's going to explode in your fucking house.
Join us next time. And as always, listeners, we appreciate you.